Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'd like to talk about the Constitution of the United States concerning the interstate jurisdictional provisions of the Constitution. And as I'm going through the United States Code annotated and the preface, the Code of the United States, and I'm going through the Constitution itself this morning, I'm discovering some pretty interesting facts. Now, when you discuss the Constitution of the United States, you'd think that you'd be able to find the provisions of the right to trial by jury in any controversy involving $20 or more shall be preserved. But for some odd reason, it's not in here. And I'm also noticing some other rather odd anomalies, some rather odd coincidences, but you get to the bottom of this Constitution of the United States at Article 12, and then it's the signed there by Washington President and Deputy from Virginia. You can't find in the United States Code the Bill of Rights. It just isn't in there, and I took the time to go through the trial volumes of Corpus Juris Secundum, laying out the rights to jury trial, and then of course I got into several areas of that embodiment of law. And it's odd, you can't find the in matters involving $20 controversies involving $20 or more. It just doesn't appear in there. Pretty interesting, the Code of the United States and the treatises that explain the codes of the United States. But in any event, the Constitution of the United States has pretty much been suspended. Now I want to explain to you why. The jurisdictional minimum for a controversy between two parties has been raised to $75,000, and I think it's even up to $150,000 these days. So your rights to jury trial involving property before the federal courts has been eviscerated. It does not exist anymore. And when you take a real hard, long look into how the federal courts operate, you'll begin to discover that the citizens, the subjects, the serfs, the peasants of the United States don't have any constitutional rights in the federal courts. Now, I want to bring you up to a matter that's pressing today. The rights to jurisdiction over cases involving people from the different states. I was specifically in Article 3 of the Constitution this morning, and Article 3 states at Section 2, the judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity arising under this Constitution. The laws of the United States and treaties made, or which shall be made, under their authority to all cases affecting ambassadors and other public ministers and consuls, to all cases of admiralty and maritime jurisdiction, to controversies to which the United States shall be party, to controversies between two or more states, between a state and citizens of another state, between a state and citizens of another state, between citizens of different states, between citizens of the same states claiming lands under grants of different states and between a state, and citizens thereof and foreign states, citizens or subjects. Now, what I want to point out here in Section 2 of Article 3 is it very clearly states that the judicial power shall extend to all cases, yada, 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 to all cases of admiralty and maritime jurisdiction, yada, 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 and to controversies to which the United States shall be a party, to controversies between two or more states, between a state and citizens of another state. So the states can have jurisdiction over citizens of another state under the constitutional provisions in federal court. The judicial power shall extend to those cases. And then it goes on to state that citizens of different states under what's known as diversity of citizenship shall have the right to proceed with their federal matters of law in a federal court and to decide those cases. The problem is that the jurisdictional minimum is so high that if your case is only worth $1,000, you don't have a right to access a federal court. If your case is only worth $50,000, shin plaster, excuse me, because everybody knows these days it's all fiat bills of credit, scrip, or what's also known as shin plaster. So the dollars aren't even real anymore. There's no real dollars. And if you take a serious, good, hard, long look and closely examine what a state is, well, they're independent nations. Each of the 50 states of the United States are independent nation states. The whole regiment, if you will, the whole regime, the whole system is smoke and mirrors. And then they don't follow it anyways. I mean, when's the last time you went down to the bank and gave them a $5 bill, a $5 note, and they gave you $5 silver back? And you go down there now and you give them $5 for a roll of pennies, and you know, the pennies are fake. They're zinc. The pennies are fake. They're plated zinc. They're not copper. And all the silver's been taken. And when's the last time you got paid $20 gold pieces? So the reason for this video this morning is to give people the tools with which they need to understand that this matrix of so-called constitutional rights is nothing but smoke and mirrors. It's not real. I just was informed that the state of New York, the nation of New York, doesn't have minimum contacts in the Fourth Circuit courts of the United States. The state of New York has no presence, no minimum state contacts under international shoe. That's a case, by the way. That the state of New York does not have minimum contacts in the Fourth Circuit courts, the Fourth Circuit jurisdiction of the Fourth Circuit courts, essentially Virginia and North Carolina, so that you can't bring a case against them at law in the courts of the United States. Which, folks, here's the bottom line. New York State is involved in more than 25 interstate compacts and does thousands of business transactions in Virginia and in North Carolina every month. The state of New York and the state of Virginia and the state of North Carolina engage in huge amounts of finance, child placement, prisoner placement, prisoner extraditions. They're involved in all sorts of electrical rate cases and matters. They're involved in fisheries. They're involved in interstate driver's license matters, tickets, suspensions of licenses, collections of fees, license plates for retrieval, and the seizure of license plates, and etc., so on and so forth. Thousands and thousands of transactions annually between North Carolina, Virginia, and New York State. But the courts of the United States have decreed they have no business. They don't do any business in Virginia or North Carolina. Everything the state of New York, Virginia, and North Carolina does is official business. Official business. They do all kinds of business interstate through these compacts. So I've been lied to. Just blatantly lied to. I take the case up to the U.S. Supreme Court, and guess what? The Supreme Court of the United States throws away 99% plus of all cases, all writs that are filed with the appellate court. They hear less than 100 cases a year. They generally get about 10,000 cases filed, but they only hear 100 cases. Less than 100 cases. About 80, actually. So the Supreme Court of the United States is a trash dumpster. The place where constitutional rights go to die. Ladies and gentlemen, I suggest to you that the Supreme Court of the United States is a wastebasket. I'm telling you that the Supreme Court of the United States is a trash can where cases go to be recycled and thrown away. They don't hear them. They don't rule on them. They don't comment on them. They throw them in a wastebasket. It's a black hole. It's literally a gateway to Alice in Wonderland's rabbit hole. The cases get thrown away. So, in the U.S. Supreme Court, for 99% of the American people that ever go there, it's a waste of time. 99% of the people in America get nothing from the U.S. Supreme Court except stiffed. They get stiffed, bamboozled, and lied to, because all cases involving $20 or more, the right to trial by jury shall be preserved. It's a lie. It's a lie like the gold coins. The gold coins are gone, the silver coins are gone, and the pennies are zinc. They're not copper. So your Constitution has become basically a big joke. It's just a big joke. And those guys running around with the pocket pamphlets in their pockets, you know, the constitutions that they love to carry in their top pockets, they don't really know what they're talking about. They're just running a game on everybody. And I have my suspicions about it, because they seem to be a magnet for informants and federal agents and everything else. You know, you get together with them boys with them constitutions in their top pocket, and you're surrounded by a bunch of state police informants with the federal and state police agencies. Sorry, folks, but that's just the reality of it. You go out to these Second Amendment rallies, and you go out to these constitutional law gatherings, and what you're surrounded by is a lot of police and federal agents, you know, infiltrators. But folks, I'm going to leave it right there this morning. There's a lot more coming up. We got a lot more digging to do, and we're going to take a long, close, hard look into what exactly is going on in the United States of America Incorporated. Folks, we're leaving it right there. As always, hasta la vista, God bless, and you betcha we are definitely coming back.